gotta get out of here. I 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 gotta get out of here.
A few years back, I lived with my mom and our dog in a 2-bedroom townhome. One day I got home from work and went about my daily routine, preparing dinner before heading to my bedroom and watching my shows until I fell asleep. At least that was the plan. When it came time to eat dinner, I knocked on my mom's bedroom door to come and eat. I smelled cigarette smoke and heard the TV softly playing in her room, but I didn't get a response. I knocked again and said, "Mom, come and eat." Then I heard a grunting response that seemed like she wanted me to go away. I thought she was on a business call or something, so I didn't want to bother her. I didn't really understand her, but I just thought I'd put her plate away until she was ready to eat. Fast forward to about 2 a.m. By this time, I'm passed out with my phone still playing on my chest. I woke up because I felt someone holding my hand and gently shaking it. I immediately shoot up and look around in a panic to see nothing but darkness. Every single night, my dog, who is overly protective, sleeps with me right by my side. I kept slapping my hand around the side of the bed trying to find her, but I couldn't. My heart dropped even more because she was absolutely in bed with me when I went to sleep. I always sleep with my bedroom door closed and locked, so I had no clue where she could have been. Then amidst my panic, I start to hear something. My dog is scratching and clawing at my bedroom door. I ran to open my door, and she burst in, sniffing every square inch of the bedroom. I kept asking her what happened and what was wrong, but she kept looking around and growling. At this point, I yell for my mom in the house, but there's no answer. I ran down the hall to my mom's bedroom where I still smelled cigarette smoke. I bang on the door and yell for her, but there's still no answer, so I just opened it. When I opened the door, I saw my mom wasn't even there. The TV was off, and the bed was still neatly made. My dog and I searched the entire house, and nothing is out of place. All of the doors and windows are still locked. I was freaked out and called my mom, who said she was out of state visiting my grandfather. I knew she was leaving, but she decided to leave a day earlier than she told me. It leaves me wondering, what the hell happened? It's time to wake up and face Rez. Breathe. Breathe. You better not stop. Doesn't feel good when it's happening to you, does it? I don't think so. My uncle has a farm in the south that I remember visiting when I was around 10 years old. It was a small town right next to a church where my family had gone for generations. For a long time, things weren't going so well at my uncle's farm. Crops weren't growing right, and healthy animals were randomly dropping dead. Chickens and other small creatures were being spotted, with their guts open and ripped out. Things that had never happened before until that year. So one day, the grown-ups are acting all sketch, the way they do when something big is happening, but they don't want to scare the kids. My grandma, my mom, my uncle, aunt, and some older cousins are hanging around my uncle's farm. They're all gathered with the priest of the church. They basically kick me out of the house and say, "Go play," since I was the only kid there. Naturally, being a very curious kid, I climb as high as I can in the nearest tree to the house. I was trying to eavesdrop and listen in on the conversation they were having. I only heard a snippet, but I couldn't figure out what they were up to. Everyone eventually leaves and heads towards the stables of the farm. I was about to hop out of the tree after they all left, but then I heard something. The front door to the house creaked open, and a woman I've never seen before walks out. She looked like she was in her 30s with brown hair tied back, wearing a long blue dress. She casually walked out of the house in slow paces, with her eyes straight forward. I stayed in the tree as I looked at the stranger, and had an odd cold feeling run through my body. I was just a kid, so I didn't think much of the feeling. Then the woman stopped walking and stood still in the middle of my uncle's dirt road. I was shocked when the woman darted her head directly at me, looking right at me while I sat in the tree. I didn't know what to do, so I just sat and waved at the mysterious lady. She gave me an emotionless cold stare for 2 of the longest minutes of my life, not even reacting to my innocent friendly kid wave. The most blank look on her face, but it gave me the worst feeling in my stomach. I tried to look down at the tree beneath me, but I could see her still looking at me in the corner of my eye, just standing there with her neck turned so far I thought it would break, glaring at me. After the 2 minutes, she turned her head forward and walked down the dirt road. When she was no longer in sight, I hopped down from the tree, and the adults came back from whatever they were doing. We all gathered in my uncle's dining room for some cold lemonade. Out of nowhere, I blurted out what I saw, asking who the woman in the blue dress was. Every adult in the room freaks out, and my aunt even starts crying. The priest looked like he was about to get sick, as his skin turned pale. My mom told me that the woman was just visiting, and that was it. They sternly told me to eat and keep quiet. A decade later, my uncle finally tells me about the woman I saw. He said the woman was seen on or around his farm by many people in the small town. It became so frequent, but nobody knew who she was. When it was brought up at the church, they assumed that maybe she was a lost spirit trying to find her way. Until one night, she attacked the priest of the church at his very own house. After that, she began to slaughter animals on the farm and around the town. When this began, they decided she was a demon, appearing as a woman to hide her true nature. The day I saw her from the tree, my uncle had gotten permission from the church to perform an exorcism on his land. My uncle thinks I saw her leaving his land for good. Some say they've seen her inside of the church and other places. But I wonder, where did she really go when I saw her leaving? She had no expression, but she didn't seem like she was in a hurry to leave. The moment she was gone, the crops began to grow again, and there were no more dead animals found. I'm generally a big skeptic, and I'm not as religious as the rest of my family, but that day still scares the hell out of me, because I have no explanation for what happened.
Well, well.
Who the fuck are you?
Looks like you're awake. You must not know why you're here. Or maybe you do.
I just want to go home.
I don't give a shit.
You've gotten away with too much. Too many kids you've hurt. Too many women you've raped. And I'm not gonna say what else. The system has been letting you get away with too much for too long. I'm tired of it. So we're gonna do something about it.
About 3 years ago during the summer, I had a habit of staying up late playing video games with my window open. This was never a problem as my neighborhood was generally quiet. However, one night, I heard something tapping against my window. It made my heart stop for a moment. It scared me so bad. When I went over to investigate, I heard someone calling out for help in Spanish. I thought maybe it was one of my neighbors, so I went outside. Once I saw who was calling for help, I knew something was off. For one thing, I had no idea who they were. Another thing was their clothing was ripped up and torn. It was a young girl with no shoes on and panting for air like she had been running for miles. She was so young that she could have been mistaken for a little boy and was covered in dirt and sweat. I tried communicating with her to no avail because she was so frantic. I eventually went inside to ask my parents for help. We ended up calling my uncle who speaks Spanish. He told us she was trying to explain that she was taken and forced into a human trafficking ring. She said she needed help and wanted money or a ride to another state, but we couldn't give either. We offered to call the police, but then she panicked even more. She seemed scared the whole time, but she seemed adamant about not involving the police. After this craziness, me and my family went inside and called the police anyway. We didn't know what else to do. But when my mom and I went to check on her, we saw something. There was a dark car with no headlights pulling into our street. We got the worst feeling and ran back into the house. After we figured the coast was clear, we went back out, and the lady was gone. When the cops came, we filed a report, but we never heard anything back. When she told me all of that, it blew my mind, and kind of still has me questioning so much around me. Are we really safe?
How do you feel right now?
Please stop. Just...
Are you scared? Are you scared? Good. You're pathetic. Shh. Hush now. I've been following you for a long time, my friend. Too long. And I just had to pick the right time. I just had to pick the right time. It's so crazy. We could be anywhere. You and I. Anywhere.
I'm sorry for what I did to those ladies. I'm sorry for what I did to those kids. I swear. I fucking swear. I swear. I swear.
And here we are.
I was 22 years old and had just gotten a place closer to my new job, but the neighborhood was secluded. Maybe about 4 horses with a mile and nothing after. It was my first week there and it was a normal night like any other. I came home from work and watched TV until I fell asleep on my couch. I woke up around 1 a.m. and I was about to go to my bedroom when I remembered to turn off the bathroom light at the opposite end of the house. As I was walking through the living room, I couldn't see much because the bathroom door was closed. It was pitch black, but I could barely see something tall standing in the corner. I didn't know if I was really seeing anything, so I froze as my eyes adjusted. When I squinted, I could see there was an old man or woman in a white gown with white hair. They were making a sound, like they were growling as I could hear their heavy breathing. They curled their skinny fingers like they were about to choke me or something. The old person began to sprint towards me like some kind of deranged crackhead, yelling and grunting like some kind of animal as they lunged towards me. I ran back to where the light was in the bathroom and put my hands up in a fighting stance. I didn't know what was about to happen, but I was terrified beyond belief. The old hag in white came down the hall so fast, it was like she was floating, and had her arms reached out. She stomped towards me and suddenly stopped, right in front of the light of the bathroom. Within the shadows, she yelled,
"What are you doing in my house?"
Her voice was raspy and full of hatred. I don't know why I did this, but I was trembling in fear and apologizing while pretending to leave. I eased my hand on the bathroom door and slowly closed it while the lady in white stood there with the meanest face. I thought at any moment she would start trying to rip through the door, but she just stood there, her mouth right against the door, breathing heavy and mumbling to herself. I called 911 from my cell phone and waited for the police to come. The entire time, she just stood there mumbling and breathing heavily against the door. When the police finally showed up, they arrested the woman who turned out to be a woman with a form of dementia. She lived about a half-mile away and wandered into my house while I was sleeping. I don't blame the lady, but I still have trouble being alone at night. I don't think I'll ever get over that, because the fear of what will be there when I wake up next time haunts me.
Like the video, subscribe to the channel.
I work at a max security prison where there are several inmates who are severely mentally ill. This place is like a section in hell, but above ground, where we keep the worst of the demons and monsters. The ones who self-harm wear a monitor on their wrist that tracks their heart rate. On top of this, we also do visual inspections. One night on an inspection round, a coworker was doing cell checks and noticed something. There was an inmate in particular with blood on their face. Nothing came up on the inmate's monitor, but the blood completely covered them. They just sat there on the floor with their legs crossed, calm, as if nothing happened. My coworker called to the inmate to ask if they were okay, but the inmate just had their eyes closed and kept repeating,
It doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt.
My coworker kept yelling to the inmate, asking where the blood was coming from as it was pulled around the inmate at this point. They didn't answer where the blood was coming from, so we had to get in there. We opened the cell to see what went down. Turns out, the inmate had plucked out both of their own eyes. Both of their eyeballs, just laying there on the floor in front of them. One of them crushed up from being pulled out of his skull, the other looking right up at us. The inmate's HR monitor never alerted, and they never even screamed once. I remember seeing bits of meat and blood on his lips, as if he had tasted or slightly chewed up on the mashed up eye. I haven't been able to shake off those memories, and sadly, I don't think those images will ever leave me.
Today's your lucky day.
No more. No more. No more. No more.
You get to pick. Which one do you want to have fun with? Don't panic. Don't panic. They're from your kitchen, okay? Don't. Alright. You know what?
I'll pay you. Just stop. I'll do anything. I'll pay you.